Chapter 1. The big old farm at the end of the road was called the Manor Farm. It was said, all those years ago, that it was once called Animal Farm, a farm led by animals where joy and happiness thrived. But those rumours were long forgotten. Under the terrible rule of Napoleon the pig, and lives full of fear and terror, there wasn't a place that could be more miserable. A lot of animals lived on that farm, every day the same. Small food rations and work, every day. The sadness hung in the air all the time. No animal spoke, there was no need to. Once an animal was too old to work, they were ruthlessly slain by Napoleon, or sold to be killed and, in most cases, eaten. Napoleon was in great terms with most other farms, although this farm was still, even after many years, the only farm led by pigs in the county. Clover, an old white mare, who was greatly admired in secret by all the animals, had called them all to meet in the working fields at midnight tonight. The animals weren't sure what to make of this, but Clover assured them that this was the only place they wouldn't be overheard, for neither Napoleon nor the rest of the pigs would ever go there. They did not do a day of work in their lives and never would. That night all the animals huddled together for warmth in the fields, the one furthest from the farmhouse where Napoleon and all the pigs slept. Clover was the first to arrive, laying down on the grass and swishing her short tail. Benjamin, the very old and quiet horse who never spoke and had never anybody speak to him, came a second later, and, as usual, he spoke a word to no one. Once the rest of the animals arrived, with the exception of the pigs, of course, Clover spoke at last. "Comrades," she said. A few of the animals gasped quietly. That word had been banned a few years ago by Napoleon himself. "Comrades, I do not have a lot of time left on this earth. I am an old horse, and with good food and health care, may have lasted a year more than I would have done. Our lives are miserable. We work and work with no benefit for ourselves at all. None of you remember Jones, comrades." There was a shudder at the word comrades again. "But I know that he was no worse than this. We toil and work hard and get nothing in return. All our offspring goes to Napoleon, who either sells them or uses them at the farm for labor and fake teachings." Clover paused for a while, letting the words sink in. "Do any of you remember Boxer, comrades?" The animals frowned, thinking hard, but eventually most of them shook their heads. Benjamin stayed silent. "He was a very good friend, and so strong. 'I will work harder' was his greatest motto. Then, once he became too old to work for us any more, comrades, Napoleon sold him for some alcohol," she cried. Then, for a long while, everything was silent. Clover spoke again. "Pigs are the greatest enemy and worst threat to all other animals. A rebellion won't work any more. We've tried that. Look where it led us. All of us are scared to speak our minds any more, amongst animals we once known as friends. I will not be here much longer, comrades, but without me, you must change this disastrous thing once and for all. Whilst I am still alive, I will give you all the guidance I can give. We won't have a rebellion this time. The pigs are too clever to rebel against. No, we, that is to say, you, will have an escape, comrades." Many animals frowned, but whether from the repeated use of comrades or from the fact that none of them knew what escape was, Clover was unsure. "You shall leave the farm," she clarified, "because it is not the joyful thing it once was. You will run, fly, walk, drag yourselves, in short, escape to a wonderful land unlike our own, where all animals are equal and live equally. This wonderful land exists, I assure you, comrades. You will find better lives even if I never did. I lived through Jones. I lived through Napoleon and will die at the hands of Napoleon. I don't want you to be the same, she said, voice faltering a little. I want you to be free. We animals were not born to be slaves. None of us were. Only after a long while without Clover speaking did Benjamin speak up, although quietly. It will not work, he croaked. I have lived through many things, through rebellion, slaves, freedom, and I know this is impossible. There is no such thing as freedom. Have no hope, animals. I would like to add, Clover said, as if no interruption had been made, that we should refer to each other as comrades. We are all equal. We are all animals. We are all friends. As I mentioned before, comrades, the only real threatening thing are the pigs. We, you, she corrected herself, shall escape to a world I have never seen. You should all be free. You all deserve to be free, she finished quietly. Benjamin gave a quiet sigh, but said no more. A long silence hung in the air. None of the animals wanted to speak first. At long last, Clover raised her voice and spoke again, but she did not say anything. She sang a song, one she had been secretly singing to herself many times every night. No one knew or remembered the words any more, save for herself and perhaps old Benjamin. Beast of England, beast of Ireland, beast of every land and clime, hearken to my joyful tidings of the golden future time. Soon or late, the day is coming. Tyrant pig shall lose his throne, and the fruitful fields of England shall be trod by beasts alone. Rings shall vanish from our noses, and the harness from our back. Bit and spur shall rust forever, cruel whips no more shall crack. Which is more than mind can picture? Wheat and barley, oats and hay, clover beans and mangold wurzels shall be ours upon that day. Bright will shine the fields of England, purer shall its waters be. Sweeter yet shall blow its breezes on the day that sets us free. For that day we all must labor, though we die before it break. Cows and horses, geese and turkeys, all must toil for freedom's sake. Beasts of England, beasts of Ireland, beasts of every land and clime, Hearken to my joyful tidings of the golden future time, she sang in a quiet voice. The animals relaxed at the sound. It was a sound of peace and a golden future Clover promised to them. Perhaps, she whispered, we should say goodbye and go back to our stalls now. But don't forget what I have told you, comrades. Slowly, and as if reluctantly, the animals began to leave the secret gathering. Clover left last of all, apart from Benjamin. No one noticed him lying on the grass under a shadow, whispering some strange words to himself. After a long while, he finally stood up. It will never work, Benjamin muttered, before shaking his hooves and slowly dragging himself to his stall. Chapter 2. Clover died in her sleep a week later. Napoleon was told, but he did not seem too sad at the loss. If anything, he was annoyed. Now less work shall be done, and your rations shall be reduced even more, animals, he shouted, cracking his whip. The animals cowered. It wasn't their fault that Clover died, and yet no one dared to speak it aloud, as usual. Yes, Napoleon, a few of them stammered, and they went to work. We can't go on like this much longer, Topus, a small brown pony, said to its twin, Alka. Perhaps Clover was right, another animal suggested. Maybe another land is waiting for us, out there. Alka pointed to the horizon with a small hoof, where the sun was slowly rising. The golden future land, where every animal is equal and no pigs rule us. When we are all free, she said. What did you say, animal? Roared a voice. Napoleon stood behind them on his hind legs. The animals gasped. Topus shifted slightly so as to protect his sister. Napoleon pushed Topus roughly aside, grabbed Alka by her soft brown ear and pulled her towards the farmhouse. She neighed in fright, and some animals ran to save her, but she was in the doors in another second. Squealer, Napoleon's faithful helper and pig, shut the door, and soon his small piggy face was not visible anymore. For the first few seconds there was silence. Then a roaring, or was it screaming, came from inside the farmhouse. And the animals decided that they couldn't just stand there doing nothing and let their comrade face her fate. Jula, a rather large male cow, knocked the door clean off, and the animals rushed inside, eager to save their friend. Fools! Benjamin shouted after them. Do you not see that you are taking yourselves to your deaths? Leave Alka alone. She will survive. Or do you prefer a whole bunch of dead bodies instead of one? He called. But no one heard, or no one wanted to hear. Mournfully, Benjamin made a slow trot to Clover. He dug with his hooves in the ground near his stall, where a fresh patch of green grass was, and where she used to love to lie in the evenings. Benjamin dug a small grave, then gently pushed her inside. Pulling the ground over with his hoof, he suddenly remembered how Boxer, his dear friend and companion, died. He had been killed, or sold more like, and the van had taken him away. At that time, the animals believed he had been sent to the hospital, because it was a while later they realized that Napoleon was a crook. Benjamin remembered Boxer's small face in the window, realizing too late that he was going to be killed. Even with his miraculous strength, he could not break the side of the van and had been carried away, helpless, to the knackers. What have I become? Benjamin said quietly to himself. I have failed to save Boxer and now I can't even try to help Alka. Then, coming to a decision, he raced after the animals into the farmhouse where a riot was taking place. The pigs and the dogs were fighting against all the other animals. Napoleon decided that he was too important to be trampled, so he was standing on the table shouting instructions to the pigs and the dogs. But, try as they might, not even the pigs could defeat all the animals together. They were angry after all Napoleon put them through. Those who remembered Jones all decided that this was much worse. Even a human was better than a pig, the greatest enemy to all other animals. But just as the battle seemed to be won, Napoleon stood up on his hind legs on the table, whipping out a gun. All the animals froze in mid-fight. Napoleon pointed straight at Alka in the center of the room. "Never insult me," he whispered in a deadly tone. Then the gun fired. The bullets seemed to take an age to fly all the way to Alka, who was too stunned to move. Just at this second, Benjamin pelted forwards, halting in front of Alka. The bullets shot his chest and he collapsed in a heap. All the animals stared sorrowfully at the bravery of Benjamin. They all felt sadness. 2 dead animals in a single day. Napoleon, full of rage, shot the gun again, but it let out a faint put, put, put sound. There were no bullets left. Sighing in a quiet relief, the animals turned to Alka, but she wasn't there. Instead, she and her brother were pelting full speed towards Napoleon. They pushed everything in front of them out of their way, and eventually, raising their front hooves and jumping on the table simultaneously, with a strength that no one would have guessed just by looking at them, they pushed Napoleon right over. He fell from the table straight onto the floor, and would have survived if all the animals had not jumped straight on him and tackled him to death. That was the last of Napoleon. All the pigs and the dogs, sensing defeat, rushed to the exits and ran as fast as they could out of the barred gates of the manor farm, past the wall which had 12 words written on it. "All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others," it said. This was the one commandment under Napoleon's rule, but he was dead. Thomas rushed to the commandment and, taking a white paint bucket by the foot of his wall, splashed it over with huge momentum. Paint dripped down, and only the first 4 words were now visible. "All animals are equal," it now said. And Thomas used the white to slick the comma into a full stop, because everyone agreed that this was the end of a sentence with no but. All animals are equal, because that was the truth for now.